Come on, everybody. Let's go. Get ready for a summertime adventure from another Sommer-Time Story. This is the story of The Richest Poor Kid, written and told by award-winning author Carl Sommer.
Randy had an old problem. Everything he had was old, and to Randy, it was a big, big problem. Randy lived in an old wooden house. It was clean, but it was much too old for Randy. His friends lived in beautiful brick houses. Randy had an old bicycle and a few old toys, but his neighbor Mike had a new bike and lots of new toys. Whenever Mike saw Randy riding his old bike, he yelled, "Get your piece of junk off the road!" Then he laughed at Randy for riding his old bike. This made Randy furious. When Randy got out of sight, he would give his old bike a swift, hard kick and yell, "Oh, how I wish I were rich! I'd buy a new bike and get rid of this old piece of junk." What was Randy's problem? Clea?
That his bike was old and his friend got a new one and he wanted a new one.
Okay, that's one of his problems. What else was his problem here? All right. Miguel?
He doesn't have a lot of good toys. They're all old.
Yes. Another big problem that Randy had? Mercy?
He wasn't thankful for what he had.
Yes, they're good answers. And the root problem, he's worrying what people think. And that's a big problem with a lot of boys and girls, and with a lot of parents too are watching this video. They just, oh, what does everybody think of me? And they're so concerned about their image, and they have what we call as a rat race. They're always trying to create an image. Look at me, look at me, look at me. I want the latest this, I want the latest car, I want the latest refrigerator, I want the biggest house. And that's all they look for, is for their image, and they live a very miserable life because they don't have it. Their best friend has a refrigerator that has ice water coming out of it, and they don't have that, and they're very unhappy. So foolish. Instead of learning to be thankful for what you have, they're just always living in a world of despair. Oh, and just like Randy here, look, he's got a new bike. I got this junky bike. I just have, they have new toys. I have old toys. And he's very unhappy. He's miserable. Let's see what happens now. Why can't I get new clothes? Randy always complained. And why do I always have to wear hand-me-downs from my brother? When Randy rode in their old family car, he always grumbled. Everything I have is old, old, old. How I wish I were rich. Then I'd get everything new. One day, Randy asked his sister, "Why are we so poor?" "Dad died when you were 3 years old," explained his sister. "Now Mom has to work to support us. Mom barely makes enough money to pay for rent and food, so there's never any money left for new things." Why was Randy's family poor? All right, Emma?
Because his dad died when he was 3 years old and his mom had to go to work and try and support their family.
Yes. That's why they were poor. His dad died and his mom was working, and Mom loved the children. And that's why they were poor. Now, I was born in 1930, and there was once in the United States what is known as the Great Depression. That started 1 year before I was born, all right? And about 25% of the people, that's 1 out of every 4, were unemployed, didn't have any work. People couldn't find work. It was very tough for a lot of people when I was born. In fact, when I was a young kid about your age, all right, I forget exactly what age, but somewhere about some of your ages here, I went and bought some pretzels. And not small ones. They were about this big, good size, about this big, all right? Regular size pretzel. And I would buy 25 cents worth of pretzels. all right? And I would get 50 of them. They were half a penny a piece, what you probably pay by $1.50 or $2 a pretzel. This was during the Great Depression. And I would go on the avenue and I would sell the pretzels for a penny a piece. Fresh pretzels, I would say. And I had a little clothespin on a basket. I had a cloth covering. And particularly I yelled out when I saw a mother with some children, and I would yell, fresh pretzels, and I was so happy I would sell one. And I would eat a few of them, and they were so delicious. And imagine after working, I usually did that on a Saturday morning, and you worked the whole morning, and you earned 25 cents. No, I never earned that much because I ate so many. So I made maybe 20 cents, 22 cents, whatever I could. And that's how I grew up, you know. And we had, now today kids, I want a TV in my room, all my friends have one and I can't. I wouldn't allow you to have a TV in your room because there's so much trash on there. Even on the internet, your parents have to protect you. There's a lot of good stuff on the internet, but a lot of bad stuff. And parents protect their children because of that. They don't want you watching all that stuff. You have to learn to say no and not look at some of the trash. And some of the kids will say, look at this, or you go to someone's house, say, no, I don't want to look at that stuff. That's bad stuff. And don't be curious, start looking at it. There's a lot of this stuff going on today, all right? And a lot of kids say, oh, I don't have the latest thing. I grew up, we never had a phone in the house. Television didn't even exist. We did have a radio. That's the only thing we had was a radio, right? And we didn't have any heat in the bedrooms, no air conditioning. We got up in the 90s in New York City, very hot. That's the way we lived. My father never had a car. We drove the buses and subways and the trains. We wanted to go someplace, right? The street I lived in was no grass, was solid asphalt, the street. Then the sidewalk and stoops, the houses were solidly lined together on both sides. That's the way I grew up. And we were happy as kids. We had a lot of kids to play with, so we always played games out in the street. We had all kinds of games. So few kids play together now. They just sit in their houses and watch TV or play with their little iPads and their games instead of being active. And learn to do your exercise because it's healthy for you. All right? But I was a happy kid. I don't feel that I lost anything doing that. And learn to appreciate what you have. And Randy now is miserable. He's unhappy. And they're trying to tell him why. And he's living a very miserable life because of what his friends make fun of him. And learn to appreciate it. And you parents too. Don't get into that rat race and just trying to compare yourself to others. You'll avoid a lot of problems in life. Learn to appreciate what you have. You children and also you parents. Then Mom walked in and gave Randy a big hug. Mom always gave her children lots and lots of love. In the evenings, Mom had her children read books from the library. When they were finished reading, they sat together and talked. Mom often remarked, I want you to make a better life for yourself. But as long as we have food and clothing, we should be happy and content. Not me, Randy always mumbled to himself. Look at my friends. They have new things, and they're always happy. I have old things, and I'm always miserable. What did Mom say to Randy he should be? Jocelyn?
If you have food and clothing, then be content.
Right. If you have food and clothing, be content. That's really, if you have the food, you got something to eat, and you got clothing, and a place to sleep, you should be happy. No, I want. Well, you can live a very unhappy life. I'm living in the same house when I moved down here to Houston 36 years ago. That's the only house I ever owned. And I have a very successful business. I'm happy. I don't want a big house to show off. I'm not interested in showing off. I could get myself a nice big house and have people, oh, wow, that's your house? I'm not interested in that. To me, that's a foolish way to live. I'd rather use my money to help other people and do other things. You know, just trying to impress other people. Look at me. Look how I dress. No, but poor Randy, he's caught up in that rat trap, you know. Look what everybody else has. Look what everybody... He's just miserable. He's living a very unhappy, miserable life. There was another thing that made Randy mad, really mad. His mom believed that teaching children how to work would help them when they became older. She often said, learning to work is the path to success. Randy and his brother and sister had to do all kinds of chores. They cleaned the dishes, vacuumed the floors, dusted the furniture, took out the garbage, helped with the laundry, weeded the garden, mowed the lawn, and did whatever else was needed. Randy often complained, "Look at Mike. He never works, but I have to do all kinds of work." What did Randy's mom say about work? Okay, Sean?
That she thought if you do work, then it would help you when you get older.
Yes, if you learn to work. I'm a firm believer in that. Teaching children to work. And you parents watching this, I urge you, teach your children to work. It's one of the best things you can do. Because when you get older, you're going to have to learn to work. And some children, like Mike, he never had to work. That's not good. Because sometimes these kids that never have to work, they grow up to be lazy. Everything's handed to them like on a silver platter. But those who have learned to work and study, I remember reading an article once about a family that had their children do all kinds of work, and the neighbors felt sorry for them because their parents made them do all kinds of work. But later on, guess who were the successful ones? It was those kids, because they learned to work. Their parents trained them to work, and later on in life, they became successful. So don't gripe when your parents have you do housework and do other kinds of work around, maybe in the garden or help dad with the car. Learn to work and be grateful for that. One day, Mike saw Randy weeding the garden. "Look at the poor servant boy," he yelled. Then he let out a loud laugh and said, "Make sure you're pulling out all the weeds." Randy, his face red with anger, groaned, "Oh, if only I were rich. Then I'd get someone to do all my work. Then no one would ever laugh at me again." Randy hated to be corrected. He got angry whenever his teacher said, "To become successful, you must learn how to work." Randy became furious when his teacher repeated what his mom had tried to teach him. Remember, things don't bring happiness. If you have a loving home, clothes to wear, and food to eat, you should be happy. "No way," he grumbled. "Happiness comes by having new things." Then Randy would close his eyes and dream. "I wish my pockets were filled with gold so I could buy anything I want. Then I'd throw away all my old junk and buy everything new. Then no one could ever tease me again. Oh, how I wish I were rich. Then I'd be the happiest kid in the whole world." What did Randy hate? Isaiah?
He didn't like to be corrected.
Yes, he hated to be corrected. And let me tell you something. That's one of the secrets to be successful. To be willing to be corrected. And I could talk to you for a long, long time about this, and I could give you many, many illustrations. And these storybooks that you see here, and the videos and the CDs, they have won 60 awards. Why? Because I'm always looking for correction. And I pay people. I send it to editors. This woman has her own agency. She writes books. She's an adjunct professor, and she teaches writing. And I want her to read my books and correct them. And I pay her. And I want other people. And anybody who reads it before I publish them, please, how can I make these books better? So when you're reading these books, it's not just Carl Sommer that's written these books. These are ideas from all kinds of other people. I pick people's brains. I want correction. And if you're smart in life, Learn to seek correction. And one of the ones who give you the most correction are your parents. Do you listen to them? Or do you get mad? Well, learn to listen. All right? If you're smart, not all children do, and some will suffer their whole life. So you be smart. Learn and want correction. You'll be a much better person if you put that into practice. After doing his chores one night, Randy threw himself on his bed and groaned, "Oh, if only I were rich, I'd be so happy. I'd never have a sad day in my life again." Randy had not done anything unusual that day, nothing that would explain what was about to happen. Suddenly, the floor shook. A flash of lightning lit up the room, and a deafening blast of thunder shook the house. It seemed as if the sun itself had burst into his room. Randy sat up straight in his bed. His eyes nearly bolted out of their sockets. By his window was a cloud with a man's face. The voice spoke slowly. "Randy, you can wish for anything you want." Then the voice warned, "But don't forget, you get only 2 wishes. So be extremely careful for what you wish." Randy did not waste a second. He knew exactly what he wanted. He blurted out, "I wish everything I touch turns to gold." Suddenly, there was a loud noise. Randy blinked, and when he opened his eyes, he was all alone. He rubbed his eyes and asked, did something really happen? Or was it just a dream? Without another thought, Randy jumped out of bed and dashed across the room to touch the first thing he saw. I sure hope my wish comes true. When Randy's hand touched the lamp, in a flash, the lamp turned to gold. Randy could not believe his eyes. He pinched himself. He was awake. Randy held up his gold lamp and shouted at the top of his voice, "I'm rich! I'm really rich! Now I can buy everything new! This is the happiest day of my life!" Randy saw his old soccer ball. He picked it up and it instantly turned into gold. He was shocked. Then he yelled, "I've got a gold soccer ball!" Randy had never been so happy. He jumped up and down and danced around the room shouting, "Hooray! I'm rich! I'm rich! Hooray!" Randy raced into the living room and touched the chair. It turned to gold. "Everything I touch turns to gold," he shouted. "I'm the happiest kid in the whole world." Randy ran around the room touching everything he could find, and everything he touched turned to pure gold. "I can't wait until I get to a store," he exclaimed. "I'm throwing all my old things away. I'm buying everything new." How is Randy feeling now, Juliet?
Really happy and excited.
Yes, he is happy. This is the happiest day of his life. Everything he touches turns to gold. He's a happy young man. You can imagine his dreams now, what's going to happen. He can only see happiness in the future. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But let's see what happens to Randy. I'll get a gold bike that will make Mike's bike look like a piece of junk. When I see him on his bike, I'll yell, "Get your cheap piece of junk off the road." What does Randy want to do now? Okay, Noah?
He wants to buy a nice gold bike and tell Mike to get your piece of junk off the road.
Yes. He's looking for revenge. And there's people that live that way. I want to get even. Oh, I want to get a nice gold bike. And when I see Randy, I'm going to get that piece of junk off the road. And that's the way some people live. They want to show off. Look at me. Look how much money I have. Look at the dress that I have. Look at the house that I live. Look at the car that I live. Look at all the fancy things that I have. Foolish way to live. As Randy's mom said, and the teacher said, if you have food and clothing, be content. You know, you can go through life being miserable always. Oh, if only I had this, if only, or you can be happy for what you have. I'm happy for what I have. I don't need the biggest house. I don't need to have the biggest car. I don't need to have all these kind of things. If I am blessed with these things, then let me try to make other people happy. I'm not trying to see how much money I can take to the grave with me. See, that's a foolish way to live. I want to help other people. Why am I working? I'm 84 years old. I'm old. Now, I feel young. I do my exercise and eat right. I do my exercise. In fact, this morning I did 36 chin-ups at one time. All right? I try to take care of my body. But why am I doing that? I'm trying to help kids. I could be home fishing, going out fishing. I could have a vacation home. I could do all kinds of things. But I'm here, why? Why am I working for? To try to help people. And help you boys and girls and those who are watching this video, that these kids and these parents may become successful. That's why I'm doing it. And so and one thing, I can go to bed at night and I have a peaceful sleep. To me, that's worth more than having all the money in the world. If I could put my head down and just have a peaceful night and just go to sleep and be at peace.
Look, yelled Randy while still thinking about his gold bike. My model plane. He rushed over and touched it. This is great, he shouted as he watched his plane turn to gold. Running around the room and turning everything to gold made Randy hungry. I'm going to the kitchen to get something to eat, he said. Randy skipped into the kitchen and spotted some apples. Good, he said. I'll eat an apple. Randy bit down hard on the apple. Ouch, he screamed. The apple had turned to gold. Oh, I forgot, said Randy. Everything I touch turns to gold. But that's not a problem. Randy bent over the bowl and began eating another apple. He put his hands behind his back to make sure he did not touch the apple with his hands. This isn't easy, he said, but I don't mind. I'm extremely rich, and that's the most important thing in life. Randy became thirsty. He picked up a cup, and it immediately turned to gold. That's okay, he said, smiling. I'll just fill the gold cup with some grape juice. When he opened the refrigerator turned to gold. Am I ever lucky, Randy shouted. Everything I touch turns to gold. This grape juice is coming out slowly, said Randy. I'll open the spout. As he opened the spout, he accidentally touched the juice. The juice turned to gold. Now Randy began to worry. How am I going to get a drink? I'm thirsty. He sat there thinking. Suddenly he got an idea. It's simple, he said. He put his head on the faucet and pushed it. As he sipped the water, he reminded himself, I've got to be very careful not to touch the water. While drinking the water, Randy began feeling more and more miserable. All this gold isn't making me happy anymore, he grumbled.
What's happening to Randy now? All right, Mercy?
He's becoming miserable even though he has all this gold.
Yeah, now something's happening to him. Now think about it. Oh, I better not touch that water. He's thirsty. And he has to be careful now. And all of a sudden, instead of that real jubilee that he had before about everything, all this gold that he has, he's the richest boy in the world. Everything's gold. And, I better not touch it. Now he's getting a little scared. I don't want to touch that water. It's going to turn into gold. I'll have no water. I want something to drink. He couldn't eat the apple. He had to eat it without his hands. He had to put the hands behind his back. All right? So now this happy, happy world of everything turning into gold, that dreamy cloud is beginning to fade away. Let's see what happens now.
Then he looked at all the gold around him. Why am I getting so sad, he asked. I'm rich. Randy gathered some of the gold objects and placed them on his desk. Look at all my gold, he exclaimed. Now I can buy anything I want. When Randy heard Sandy, his beloved dog, he bent down and called, "Come, Sandy, come." Sandy raced across the room. When Sandy jumped on his lap, Randy patted Sandy and said, "Good girl." Then he screamed at the top of his voice, "Oh no!" Sandy began turning to gold. Randy plopped into his gold chair and cried, "Oh, how I would like to have my Sandy back. Why does everything I touch turn to gold? This is the worst day of my life. I'm the richest kid in the whole world, but I'm also the most miserable kid in the whole world."
What has Randy now become? Olivia?
He's become the most miserable kid in the world.
Randy now has become the most miserable kid in the world. He was the happiest kid in the world, and now he plunges all the way down to the most miserable kid in the world. What a change. What he thought, if only I had this. Remember when he was poor and Mama told him, if you have food and clothing, be content. No, no, no. I want new things. I want new things. Now he can get anything he wants. And now, with his gold dog, he's the most miserable kid. Let's see what happens now to Randy.
Randy looked at his gold dog and all the gold objects in his room. Then he walked into the kitchen and saw the gold apple, the gold cup, the gold juice, and the gold refrigerator. He shook his head and said, "Look at me. I'm the richest poor kid." Then he remembered what his mom and teacher had tried to tell him. Things don't bring happiness. If you have a loving home, clothes to wear, and food to eat, you have all you need to be happy. "They're absolutely right," said Randy, shaking his head. "Look at me. I can turn everything to gold, but I'm the most miserable kid in the whole world. All I want is to have my dog back and to be able to drink a glass of water." Suddenly, Randy jumped up and exclaimed, "I get one more wish. I could wish to have my dog back." All of a sudden, fear gripped Randy, and sweat began pouring down his face. What if nothing happens and everything stays this way forever? Did I really get 2 wishes? Randy plopped on the floor and began to think how terrible it would be if everything in his house turned to gold. "I could never hug my mom again," he groaned, "or hold an ice cream cone, or play soccer, or play with Sandy. Oh, how I hate that everything I touch turns to gold. What a terrible, miserable life." Then Randy remembered the voice had warned him. Be extremely careful for what you wish. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. I may have another chance. Then he said, if I have another chance, I've got to be very, very careful for what I wish. Then Randy became excited. I can wish for everything to be the way it was before. Then I can once again run and play ball and do other fun things. Tears began streaming down his face. I don't care if I ever get anything new again for the rest of my life. I just want to live the way I used to. Knowing it would be his last chance to make a wish, Randy sat there and thought. After thinking a long time on what he should say, he said very slowly and carefully, I wish everything would be like it was before. Suddenly, there was a flash of lightning, then a loud blast of thunder that shook the house. Smoke filled the room. When the smoke settled, everything Randy had touched became normal again. The chair turned into wood. His soccer ball became soft. And once again, Randy could play with all his games. Best of all, Sandy jumped on his lap and began licking his face. Randy was so happy that he hugged Sandy and danced around the room shouting over and over again, "This is the happiest day of my life."
What is the happiest day of Randy's life? Hi, Claire?
When everything turned back to normal.
Yes, this is now the happiest day of his life. But it was the life he had before. And his mom tried to tell him, be content with food and clothing. Mom was poor because her husband had died. But Randy was just miserable. Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. Now he's got it back again. Now he's happy. He learned his lesson. And I'm telling this story so you would learn to appreciate what your parents have done for you and stop complaining all the time and comparing yourself to other children. And learn to say thank you. And I'll give you an assignment. When you go home today, okay, give your dad and mom a hug and say, thank you for what you do for me. Can you do that? Learn to be appreciative and say thank you. All right? They work hard. Some of you have mothers that go out to work, and some dads are working, and they're trying to provide for you. Be appreciative of what they're doing for you.
While Randy was shouting and jumping up and down for joy, he suddenly woke up. The noise caused Mom and Sandy to rush into his room. Sandy jumped on his bed and began licking his face. "Are you okay?" asked Mom. "You didn't turn to gold?" asked Randy. "Of course not," laughed Mom. "I dreamed that everything I touched turned to gold," explained Randy as he held Sandy close in his arms. "I thought that would make me happy, but I was miserable. Now I'm thankful for the way I live and even for my old toys. I'm also thankful for having a real dog and the best mom in the whole world." Then he reached out and gave his mom a giant hug. "I love you, Mom. Now I know that even though we don't have money, I'm the richest poor kid because I have a mom like you." "Thank you," said Mom as she kissed Randy and wiped tears from her eyes.
What did Randy say about his mom? All right, Mercy?
That he was happy that she was the best mom in the world.
Yes. And you can say that to your mom too if you feel that way. Give your parents compliments. Give them hugs. They love it. All right? You're not too old to do that. All right? And that really moves me when I see that, because I know what my mother went through. And I really appreciate my mom for all she has done for me. Okay? And learn to be appreciative of your parents.
The next day, when Mike laughed at Randy for working so hard, he said to Mike, "You can laugh all you want. It doesn't bother me." When Randy went to school, he held his head high. No longer did he care what anyone thought about his old clothes or his old family car. And whenever he rode his old bike, he said, "I'm sure glad my bike isn't made of gold."
An award-winning song from Character Kids.
It's in the blood that runs through my body. It's in my bones, my feet, and in my hands. It's in my skin that keeps my insides inside me. It's in my mind where I've come to understand. I have a past passed down from my family. I've got my mother's eyes and my father's nose. But I was born to be the one and only me, and I'm the only me this world will ever know. I am exactly who I am, the only one of me that there will ever be. I am a very wealthy man, for I found a fortune in my friends and family. I've got ideas nobody else could think of, and in my heart there's love that only I can give. And I can wait until tomorrow if today is not my day, 'cause I've got dreams out where my future is. I am exactly who I am, the only one of me that there will ever be. I am a very wealthy man, for I found a fortune in my friends and family. Some people try hard to convince you that you're incomplete if your stuff doesn't measure up to theirs. But riches, fame, and fortune are just things that can't compete when you got the love of friends and family.